Alice Lee, welcome and thank you for coming in and being part of this interview process. Very nice to have you here.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. I look forward to our little conversation today, and I hope I hope we can talk about a lot of things of mutual interest.
Great, thank you. I will start with the first question, and really, you've been in office at a lot of different times, Alice, over the years, and through that time, you certainly had helped to support different legislation and support different things to support our INA here. What are the things that you are most proud of in not only this term, but the other terms that you've served in the past? What are you most proud of in terms of your accomplishments?
I think I've spent a lot of time focusing on social issues. I've when I was in office earlier, I helped to expand the Homeless Resource Center here in Wailuku. We created the West Maui Resource Center on the west side. I negotiated land from AMFAC, 5 acres, and we built that homeless resource center in the cane fields above the park, the county park. We were going to build one in Kihei when I left, but that was the plan to try and have a resource center in every major district. So that's something that I'm really proud of, but unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to finish. Um, I also spent a lot of time in the area of drug court. We helped to create the drug court on Maui. Um, the drug problem is probably not as prevalent as it was maybe 5 or 10 years ago, but it's still a major problem today. But that's another area that I focused on, and affordable housing. So these are pretty much, my background is pretty much associated with various nonprofits, starting with Women Helping Women, of which I was the board chair for 5 years. I was on the Status of Women Committee. I helped to spearhead the women's conferences in the 80s. So that's where I came from. And what I'd like to do is continue not only to focus on social services, not only because it's important, but now it's a necessity with the pandemic and all the social issues at our doorstep. We have to ratchet it up. We have to step it up. We have to create more opportunities for those, especially those who are homeless or houseless. They need to have uh, a path forward and an incremental path forward. Like, for instance, if you started in your car and you went to a tiny home or a micro home, like on Waiale'e, then maybe a resource center, and then maybe your own apartment or home one day. So that's the kind of thing that we want to build, amongst many other things on the council.
So Alice, from the work you did with the Homeless Resource Center, how come that didn't become a reality then for all our different communities? And what is holding that up, especially now that you're chairman and can determine then these priorities that we focus on? Is that something that is going to be a priority? Is that something that has been worked on recently and has not been able to go through? Because it sounds like this Homeless Resource Center is something that our community has needed for a long time.
You're right, especially in South Maui. Um, During our last budget session, this conversation did come up, and the Director of Housing and Human Concerns now is working on that project. They're in the process, I believe, of identifying a site. So this plan has been rejuvenated, and I would imagine that they will be able to move this project forward and have something for the South Side, perhaps next year or a year and a half from now.
Great. Thank you for that. And I'll pass on to the next person. Bruce, are you ready, or Sylvia? Bruce, why don't you take it on next, and then we'll have Sylvia after, okay? And then Tommy.
Yes. Aloha, Alice.
Hi.
Hi. I was pleased to see the county manager plan move forward. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And do you feel that the county manager had all the components that you wanted to see, or there were some changes that you would have liked to have seen to improve that?
It's really hard to say without seeing it implemented. If it goes according to how it was presented and proposed in the charter, I think it's, for me, it's very acceptable. My only concern is my concern all the time is that the legislative body does not interfere with the administrative body and vice versa. You know, I believe we have our roles and we should stay in our lanes and do the best job that we are tasked to do. And I was afraid in the beginning that that may not be the case, with the council trying to possibly overstep. But now I feel comfortable that it's clear. It's clear that the council recommends and the mayor selects his managing director. It's probably not all that far from how it's operating today, in a sense, but it all depends. Each mayor is different. I've worked with about 5, and I would say out of the 5, maybe only 1 or 2 were, I would think, I would call, maybe even just 1, political. The other 4 were highly skilled, educated professionals. But this measure ensures that the managing director is a professional, is prepared, you know, and not just a political crony or someone who is appointed because he's a friend or something like that. This way, the managing director has to be eligible and qualified for the job, and will have will have oversight much more than with just the mayor, but with the public as well and the council.
Thank you. Let's look at another charter amendments proposal idea that's been kicking around for years, and that is district voting. Right now we have the at-large voting, where a person can cast a campaign the entire island, which requires a lot of financial resources to do. What are your feelings about district voting, whether that be 9 equal districts or 3 districts based on the senatorial districts, 3 senatorial districts with 3 members from each district, including Molokai, Lanai, and Hana?
That's a large number of people to try and work with. I mean, 9 is...
No, I'm not talking about more than 9. I mean, 9-member council, but
Yeah.
district voting where they're districts. Whether then there's 2 choices out there right now, primarily there's 9 districts of equal sizes, or 3 districts with 3 members coming from that district voted for each district votes for 3 instead of 9.
Well, of course, you know, the downside of that is Molokai and Lanai and Hana will probably be combined. And so they won't have their own, very own so-called representative. That was, you know, a concern. That is a concern. And we have to weigh that with the fact that...
In the 3 senatorial district division, Lanai, Molokai, and Hana would be separated, and each one could have a seat coming from their own.
Well, again, on the other side of the coin is that that's not fair to those who have the big districts like West Side, South Side, Central. We have, let's say, a population of 35,000 in South Maui and 9,000 in Molokai and 2,000 or 2,500 on Lanai. So that doesn't seem fair to the people of the big districts to have just one person representing them when the smaller districts also have one person. So everybody has an equal vote, but what's not equal is the representation. So that has been the struggle with most people over the years. Yes, because I feel for Lanai and Molokai and Hana. So that's the problem, is the big districts would then be underrepresented.
Okay, and how do you feel about term limits, removing the word consecutive out of the term limits, so you'd have 4 terms and then that would be it, versus sitting out one term? Is that word consecutive was put in when that charter amendment was proposed, and that wasn't the intent of the law?
Yeah, that was during my time, my first go around. If I had my way, I would allow 1 6-year term, period. 1 6-year term. And the reason for that is the 2-year term is not practical. It doesn't make any sense, really. If you become a council member, you would find out very quickly that it takes a while to learn the ropes, to understand. The learning curve is very steep. And yet, you only have 1 year to work, and the second year you're running for office. So now the second year you're campaigning. But if you had a 6-year term with no ability to run for re-election, you would have to focus on your work and try and get as much done as you can in 6 years, and then not have a chance to run again. And maybe the mayor, I might give him 8 years, but council members, 6 years max, period. That's how I would do it.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'll pass it to the next interviewer.
Okay.
Aloha. Aloha,
Hi.
Alice. Thank you so much for
Hi.
coming to talk with us.
My
Yeah,
pleasure.
well, you've been around a long time, so you must have seen a lot go down about the injection wells issue. And where do you see it headed towards now, and what solutions do you see for the injection wells?
Well, I'm hoping that the DOH will finally create a permit for us to apply for and obtain, and for us to follow all the provisions on that permit, and to do everything possible over time to reduce the need for injection wells, and possibly eliminate them completely. That is the reason why we're trying to do that in South Maui, to prevent what we did in West Maui.
And how can we reduce the need for the injection wells? What is the answer?
Well, it's going to be new technology. I mean, Dr. Pang has said that he is aware of new technology that would allow us to not inject any fluids into the ground anymore. So we'll just have to wait till that is refined and becomes accepted and approved by DOH. But if there were another technology, we'd be doing it tomorrow.
Thank you for that. I've heard it circulated that one idea to address all of this is to form another community working group And I realized that several years past, there had been a community working group where they brought together specialists from different fields to all focus on the question of the injection wells. And unfortunately, at that time, their conversation was limited and they were not allowed to discuss ocean pollution. So hopefully there could be a new group that forms that can really have a holistic approach. Have you heard of that idea, and how do you feel about that?
No, I haven't heard about that idea, but I certainly could support it.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Well, just in general, I'm curious to know what keeps you going, what inspires you. Why do you stick with the Maui County Council after all these years? What is it that is the driving force that made you want to run for office in the first place, and what keeps you coming back?
After I retired from the county back in 2006, I had no intention of coming back. I was very happy being semi-retired. I used to be very content golfing twice a week on Saturdays and Sundays, spending time with my family and traveling. But then 2 years ago, people would complain to me and say that they felt that the council was becoming dysfunctional. And I said, well, gee, that's too bad. But hopefully things will change. But apparently it didn't. So I decided, okay, I will try and see what I could do to help to bring back a sense of stability and cooperation amongst not only council members but the administration, because without that it's hard to move forward. It's really hard. So I think we've achieved that this year. Not me by myself, but with everyone pitched in, and we have a really good working council. We don't agree with one another. It's all the time. And I keep telling the younger ones, you have to get used to this. If you think being married to one person is hard, try being married to 8 people. It's a challenge. Because none of us think alike. Not one of us thinks alike. But everybody has the same heart. That's where we have a lot in common. And so the next step is to take, that spirit of optimism, of teamwork, and now we're ready to move on to the next challenge, which is probably the biggest challenge of our lives. This pandemic has turned our whole world upside down. So we have a huge challenge in front of us to deal with, not only uncertain times, but unknown times. This is uncharted waters completely.
Well, thank you for that. I'm curious to know what kind of measures, what kind of policies are being planned for our economic recovery here on Maui.
Do I get to answer that, or are you?
I think our time is about up, but maybe we can talk about it again later. Another questioner might want to talk about that. Thanks.
Okay. All right.
Tommy, why don't you go next? And then after that, we'll have Daniel, and I'll follow.
Hi, Alice.
Tommy.
How are you today?
Good. I haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you.
I know. Very nice to see you. I was listening in today on trying to help out some of the grantees with the advanced process, the grant with the funding process. So that's those are the types of things it's good to see happening, right? What places you guys can make a difference. There's a couple things I'm interested in right now. Most interested in our unsheltered population on Maui, and more specifically, what the council can do to protect this population. We had a we're still in the middle of a global pandemic, and we've had CDC guidelines that the state has been following and using as justification to hold up economic, just to really shut down the economy. But at the same time, they're not following these same guidelines when it comes to the unsheltered. I've witnessed, and if you've driven through Central Maui in the past several months, you'll realize that most of the camps that were there pre-COVID have now been moved. They're gone. Everything around the harbor, under the bridge, a bunch of stuff in town. There's dozens of little spots where people have been moved during the pandemic against CDC guidelines. And the mayor's office says it's the police department. Police department isn't claiming it either. So, what can council do to, we're at a crisis level. They're doing emergency proclamations. What can the council do to protect the unsheltered right now?
Well, if you follow the budget process, you would know that we put millions of dollars toward dealing with the unsheltered. As far as being more specific, as you know, the council is not involved in the implementation of programs. We help create policy, and the administration implements. But luckily, they have been listening to some of our ideas. And one thing that we did, and in the process of doing, is working with the mentally ill nonprofits, the profits that deal with the mentally ill.
Okay.
For instance, Mental Health Kokua is in the process of working on a proposal to create 16 units for the mentally ill unsheltered, which is very important because, to me, these people are our greatest challenge, because they have difficulty dealing with their own selves. They comb the streets and so forth, whereas the other because there are subpopulations of homeless. You have the mentally ill, you have those with addictions, and then you have those who are in transition, in between jobs, in between homes. Those are the easiest ones to take care of, but the other two are harder. The addicts are difficult because they don't want to follow rules, and then the homeless are just not always in tune with reality. So we find that the homeless, if we can help reduce the numbers on the street, it would help save lives in terms of people being safe, and then the public too would be safer. So we are looking to work with Maui Mental Health Kokua to build new units, and also the Homeless Resource Center is looking to build another 8 units for them. So from 0, we're going to 24 in a very short time. So we're focusing on that group to make sure that they're taken care of. Then we can deal with the drug addicts who, although they don't follow rules in terms of not drinking in let's say the Homeless Resource Center, they might comply with at least curfew. So maybe if we created parking areas for them, because many of them still work. So parking areas, and then we're creating those micro units down at Waihe'e. Not only there, the next place is West Maui and probably South Maui for those micro units. But those are meant to be temporary units. And like I said earlier, what our plan is to help them with a path forward, which means they start here, then we lift them up to the next step and help them go on and go on and go on. It's difficult to move on when there's nothing to move on to. So that's our job, is to make sure that they have wraparound services and they have opportunities to move upward.
Do you support housing first approaches to dealing with our unsheltered population?
I think the jury's still out on that. I think it's worth a try. It's worth a try because, um, but actually, when that happens, you're taking away housing from people who really want and need housing and who are willing to follow the rules. You're taking away from those people by
So,
putting, go ahead.
well, I mean, that's kind of prioritizing people without a disease in front of people with a disease.
Well, yes, but you keep in mind that, you're with housing first, you're investing in people who are saying up front, you know what, I don't want to follow the rules, you know, but maybe after continuous monitoring and counseling and so forth, that's where, eventually
That's
you can persuade them to move on in a positive way. And that's the part I agree with, and that's the part I support.
well. It seems like there's plenty of data to support that the housing first approach is the better approach. Yet administrations around the nation are still, even here at Maui County, the new micros at Waiale'e are not utilizing a housing first approach. So it's we I encourage you to keep an open mind and keep learning about that. So thank you.
Thank you, Tommy.
I guess the only other question I think I'd have for you would be on safe ways to open up. What is your take on the economic side of Maui?
What will it take?
Yeah, I
What would
mean,
you
what's
say?
what's the plan to get things back open in a safe manner? How do you see it working best?
Well, that's beyond our control. The governor will decide when the planes start, coming back to Maui. And I just tried to make a reservation for November to go to LA, and those flights are not available yet. So, I believe in the cautious approach. I believe that we all have to, our world has changed. We have to accept it.
Yeah.
We'll always, until future notice, until we have a vaccine, we all have to practice social distancing. We all have to wash our hands and be careful about social gatherings, etc. That's going to be our way of life, for the foreseeable future. And so my I think most people have accepted that. What we need to do as a council is to ensure that we are doing everything possible to um, search and search and search and search until we find a variety of employment opportunities, reduce the number of tourists coming to Maui, find a way to create well-paying jobs, get more local people, residents who've been here a long time, into homes, and discourage, the vacation rentals and people from investing in the housing to a point where outsiders own 50% of the real estate on Maui. That's not sustainable for us.
Well, not without the record visitors year after year after year, which has got us to this point in the first place.
Well, our infrastructure was meant for 165,000 people, not 2.3 million.
Yeah.
And that's why the frustration and the resentment is present against the visitor industry.
Then if that's the case, then why do we continually see, well, I guess this time around, no, I mean, you guys did pull the funding for MVB this year, or reduce the funding dramatically, I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much.
Sure.
Daniel, you go next and then I'll follow.
Aloha, Alice. Mahalo for joining us today.
Hi, Daniel.
Okay, so I'm going to start with this question. And you have been in office this whole past 2 years, so it's been interesting to ask this question to those who have been to those who were present. Um, so here goes. As a public representative, it is a duty to face the truth and to act righteously. These islands reflect the lowest voter turnout in the United States. On May 15, 2019, Dr. David Keanu Sai gave a presentation to the Maui County Council, evidencing the illegal overthrow of Queen Liliuokalani in 1893 and showing clear violation of domestic and international law with the ongoing illegal United States military occupation of the Kingdom of the Hawaiian Islands. As a candidate for public representation, how do you rectify handling the truth of Dr. Sai's presentation, as well as the works of the Ko Hawaii Pai'aina Office in Hilo, Keamoku Kapu, Henry Noah, Amelia Gora, Pampikana Hele, Leon Su, Dr. Desaias, Madame Ruth Bolome, etc.? How do you rectify the compliance of the law in restoration of occupied lands?
Well, I think of Mr. Sai as being very knowledgeable, but extreme. I think we can't turn back the clock no matter how hard we try. And by the way, my mother is half Hawaiian. So the culture has been part of my life since I was born. But as a compromise, I think that there should be a place, whether they call it a nation or whatever they call it, a place exclusively for those who want to practice the culture and be a sovereign nation. I can support that in identified place. So the problem I think has been with the host culture itself. I think many people have want to have a separate nation for themselves, but have not been able to organize. I'm not sure why, but over the years, there have been many groups, different groups that have emerged, and they all have different points of view. So if it were possible that they could all come together and vote for some kind of whatever they want, but the problem is they haven't come to an agreement. And no matter what you do, you have to have some kind of agreement in order for a government or a nation to prosper and thrive. You can't have constant fighting and bickering. You have to have organization. And until that happens, and I think many policymakers would not be opposed to that. A lot of us acknowledge the injustices of the past, but the trick is how, not trick, but the solution is how do you resolve that? And resolving that means people coming together, and somehow they can't agree.
I hear you. Are there now you said he's knowledgeable yet extreme. Is it clear to you the facts that he has laid out? Do you agree that that there is an issue here regarding the illegal overthrow?
I think he has a case, but I don't, whether the general populace would embrace that. I don't think so. I really don't think so. Right now, people are so concerned about where they're going to get their next meal from. They're not worried about what happened with the United Nations or the, whatever group that oversees these types of things. He talked at length about, in order to rectify this matter, we have to abdicate our responsibilities and our authority to a group of people who will sort all of this out. Honestly, I don't think that'll ever happen. So what he's proposing to me is extreme. If if he came back with other kinds of options, maybe it's possible. But he also talked about, you know, all of our zoning laws, etc., are illegal and so forth. And you know, you try and take away land from somebody who owns land, who has nothing to do, who had nothing to do with the overthrow, who had nothing to do with, you know, discrimination or anything like that. People paid for their houses and properties today, and now they're going to be punished for something that somebody else did 100 years ago. That's hard. That's hard for people today to understand. I think they can accept the notion that there were injustices. And my time is up.
Correct. Mahalo. Thank you for your response.
Alice, I have a few questions about our utilities and our public resources. The first one has to do with the lifeblood of the Aina. And would you support the county asserting eminent domain over the EMI system in order to administrate the public trust water resources for the food security that's necessary for our community? And also, it certainly has a big impact in terms of development also.
I'm not inclined to support that. You probably know that I initiated the funding for the Wailuku Water Company. So to purchase the Wailuku water property and water system. And that would be mainly to preserve thousands of acres of land in perpetuity in central Maui that happens to include the water system. I feel that's different from EMI because EMI has 100 miles or so of tunnels and ditches and whatnot between there and Haile Maile, that we don't have those kinds of resources. You know, we don't have whatever it takes to pay for that, let alone maintain it. We have trouble maintaining what we have now. So that is a huge system. Whether the state would like to take that over, that's a different story. We only get X number of gallons per day for our domestic use up country. Do we want to be in charge of irrigating all of upcountry and East Maui? I don't think so. I don't think we have that kind of funds. I really don't. And that's certainly not, to me, an economic engine.
I guess
I don't think you can make profit from that.
The question, though, also has to do with control of this important resource. Again, it determines the types of crops, where the crops will be grown. It also really has a big impact on any type of development. So I guess the question is then, should we allow that to be owned and overseen by a foreign entity, Maipono, or is that something that should be overseen and controlled by the local residents?
I've always thought that the state controls the watershed and the water, stream flows, stream standards, etc. And it's quite true because none of us can own the water source, can't own it. So the real steward is the state of Hawaii, and through DLNR, BLNR, and CWORM. So to me, there's sufficient oversight of the control of that water. And as you know, there's Mahipona can only draw so much. We can only draw so much. So there is control right now. It's not something that I feel we need to worry about, that somebody else is going to, nobody's going to take the state in terms of responsibility and control, they will have it forever.
So, so if we go and look at the state's control, we're talking about the border of land and natural resources. They're a volunteer committee who then oversees millions and millions of dollars of natural resources. Is that the way you feel that we're sufficiently being taken care of in terms of our water resources by having this board be in charge of the system?
Oh, yes, because it's not only them. A few years back, the state legislature was also involved. So they have oversight. Whenever it concerns money, they are going to have oversight. So the state legislature, you have DLNR, you have CWORM, you have the governor. I mean, layers and layers and layers. You know, I don't think that we ever have to worry that we're going to lose, well, the state is going to lose control of the water. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm pretty sure it's not going to happen.
Okay, it's not that they don't have control. I guess the question is how they control and who within that jurisdiction controls the actual water and water rights and distribution. So that was the question: do we empower the board? And what I hear you say is like it's sufficient, the system we have at this point in time. Is that right?
Yes, because millions and millions of gallons have been returned to the streams. And that wouldn't have happened without the oversight of the state.
Great, thank you for that. Another question about our utilities is around electric. Since Maui residents pay the highest electric rates in the nation based on electric being provided by a private corporation, MECO, and Kauai pays the lowest rates in the nation based on the electric being provided by a community cooperative, what are your thoughts about supporting efforts to change the electric distribution system from a private corporation to a publicly owned and operated cooperative?
I don't know. I really don't know what that would entail. Certainly the county of Maui doesn't have that kind of money. So now you're talking about the state taking full control and operation of that utility?
Well, there are things such as bonds and other ways that the community could actually look at purchasing some form of microgrids. There's a lot of different options that are being utilized right now for generation and distribution of electricity. So any further thoughts on our electric grid?
Well, Paul, that might be a good idea, but you know, looking around at the county of Maui, we can't even take care of the injection wells. And now you want us to take care of this huge other kind of utility. I don't see that happening, actually.
Okay, thank you. Bruce, you're next, and then we'll follow with Sylvia.
I'm going to pass it on to Sylvia.
Hi.
Okay. Hi, Alice.
Hi.
So yeah, we could get back to the idea of what can we do to get the economy on track now?
Well, legislatively, it's difficult. We normally take care of the budget, which we are passing tomorrow on second reading, and land use issues and ordinances. But the actual implementation or administration of the budget is with the mayor and his departments. My understanding is that he has, and I think this is common, the governor has, he has, everybody seems to have a select committee or blue ribbon committee on how we're going to change going forward economically. So what we are doing is we are calling on our middle and high school students to participate in what we will call the Imi Pono Challenge. And we would like them to search the world to find what's working in other places of the globe, and we will make it worth their while. We're going to come up with really fabulous prizes, from state-of-the-art laptop computers to a dirt bike. So that's our plan, that we're going to use these kids to, because unlike adults, they don't have opinions, and they don't have biases, and they don't have history, which is sometimes good, you know. So they won't have limits. They can just go for it. And that's what I'd like to hear. I'd like to hear from this group of people who have like a blank canvas, and all they're thinking about is winning the prizes, and in the process could help us tremendously find businesses that are working in different parts of the world that we can adopt for ourselves.
Well, one idea that has come up a lot right here at home is so many people now are aware that we are vulnerable as far as food security, and that if we could diversify our economy to include more agriculture, that would be a solution that would solve two different avenues. But again, farming isn't generally that profitable on Maui. Is there a way that farming could be helped, subsidized, encouraged to happen on Maui for greater percentage of our food being grown here and to diversify our economy?
We anticipated that in our budget, and we set aside over $1 million, about 1.5 million for micro loans to farmers. And we also set aside money in general for grants and other kinds of resources. A lot of money went to Farmers United, the Hawaii Farm Bureau, and other smaller farming enterprises. We expect that there will be a tremendous growth in the farming arena, as well as ranching, etc. So we are there to support them as much as we can. But that's only one area. Like, we're looking for diversity, and so food security is very important. But finding the workers is going to be a little bit of a challenge, and finding housing for the workers is also going to be a challenge.
Yeah, what are your ideas about housing, affordable housing?
Well, unfortunately, what's going to happen is, I think what's going to happen is a lot of people who were working in the hotels, you know, a good number of them are transient. They came here to go to school, or they came here after they finished school on the mainland, and they were working here and at the hotels. And now that they have seen no future possibly in staying in their current positions, a lot of them are going to move back. So that will, for now, it'll free up rentals and other, possible homes, etc. So that's going to help for now. But in the meantime, we are very, very aggressive in trying to support housing projects. And this has not been, like a plus for me, but I have supported every single affordable housing project.
Thank you. And what other accomplishments have you seen over the years and in these last years in the council that you feel the best about? What have you accomplished?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I think one of a major accomplishment is bringing back a certain amount of stability to the council, so that we are a true working group. We try. I don't know if you had the opportunity to watch us this morning, but the beginning of every meeting is a really fun event, because we're greeting each other, and we sincerely I mean, it's a time we laugh together. You know, we care about each other. We wonder about how each is doing, and that kind of camaraderie did not exist before. And what happens in this kind of environment is that we feed off of each other. You know, one has an idea, boom, we're going down that road, and which triggers another idea, and so forth. And so we work together as a team. So that, believe it or not, is a major accomplishment. We are very much alike in terms of our goals in general. What the things that I mentioned to you is what all of us decided together at the budget. It wasn't one person; it was everybody working together, coming to the idea that yes, we need to be more diverse. Yes, we need food security. Yes, we have to support our farmers a lot more and step it up, you know, to the maximum. Uh, yes, we have to protect our resources. So many of us are on the same page. You know, sometimes we have different approaches, but other than that, you know, so you may not think that as an accomplishment, but the mayor in the last term had difficulty moving his projects forward because the council did not always get along and were at odds with the administration. When you have that scenario, you can't have progress. You just can't. We're trying really hard to work with the administration. And so that's, you know, that's the best we can do at this point.
Thank you, Alice.
You're
Paul?
welcome.
Yeah, we have time for one more question. Daniel, do you want to ask the last question, or you want to pass it on?
I have a question unless someone's got a burning one. But let me just ask you a quick question. We'll see how much time we got for another. Alice, you had mentioned that it would be nice for the 6-year period for any county council people because of the learning curve that you go through the first year and then you're campaigning the second year. Now that you've been in as a county council member for as long as you have, what are you looking forward to continuing in the next term? Well, you know, for this next round, what are you looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to finding what we need to find in terms of new industries, new businesses, encouraging people to stay with us and move forward, keep trying on their business. You know, a lot of businesses are going under. So we have to try those who have the ability to stay on it. We need to support them. We need people to keep, you know, hiring people. We have to come up with the resources. That's our job, to help other people. And at the same time, address all the social issues that come with the pandemic, the homelessness, people going hungry. You know, all of these things need our full attention. But the main thing going forward is we have to be open to changing our thinking completely, because we really are not going to return to the old world. We're going to carve out a new world. So we have to be open to all the ideas and all the opportunities to get us to that point.
Great, mahalo.
Thank you for that, Alice, and certainly it's an exciting time that we're facing as a community, and it is a blank page in many ways, and really those people that we empower in the county council, I think it's crucial at this time. So thank you for taking the time and really letting our community understand where you're coming from, your vision, your past experiences, and things that you're proud of. So thank you for participating. Now, how can our community get in touch with you if they want to find out more information about your campaign, or if they would like to donate to your campaign? How could they go about doing that?
Well, you have my email, aliceleehawaii@gmail.com. thanks to the Lord above, I do not have an opponent. Um, so I'm not asking for any donations. Go ahead and support your other candidates. They need the resources more than I do. And I'm not planning to have any fundraisers going forward. But thank you. But if questions, call me, email me. I'll be happy to respond.
Great. Thank you so much, Alice.
Okay.
Again, greatly appreciate your taking the time in your busy schedule for this interview.
My
And-
pleasure. Aloha, everyone. Thank you.